All right, guys, this is the ride-along number 3, 2. This is the ride-along. I'm going to show you how to begin to use your notes that you've taken your Canva notes and start building a summary. The summary's not hard, right? It's if you already have the information, if you've done those notes, whether you've written a lot or a little, it doesn't matter. You have the information you need to build your own summary in your own words, which is such an important thing to be able to do. And it's going to leave you feeling a little bit more confident and in control. So let's go back. I'm going to share my screen with you guys. Let's go back and look at the assignment requirements, because one of the next things that Bonnie mentions in her requirements for this third draft is we got to have that short summary. Notice it doesn't say necessarily long summary, short that represents key points and conclusions. So we're just looking for what are the main points and what did they discover? And then we'll hit that mark. So let's go back to our third draft. And this is the last thing I wrote. I was talking about the credibility. As I look at this, I think I'm going to remove the stuff about the journal. It feels like it's like super long for me. And I just want to go from like, here's the author straight to like, here's what the author had to say. So I think for this purpose, for my writing, I think writing about just what gives the author himself credibility is enough. And I'm going to move from here into talking about what he talks about in his article. In his article, Shafiyeva, and what does he do? Is he exploring? Is he arguing? Is he presenting a problem? Like, think about your own. Like, what are they doing? So I like to go back to my notes and kind of like review my notes again. Like, I don't have to necessarily read the whole article, although I can if I want to. But in my notes, I have, like, in my own words, what was it about? Key ideas in the source. Standardized tests fail to measure creativity. He did some research by just reading other people's research. He's against standardized tests because they kill creativity by taking a one-size-fits-all approach. And education needs to change. Okay, so now that I've kind of read that, I kind of get a better sense of it. I'm going to come back and I'm going to say argues. In his article, argues that, and I'm going for main points here, that tests kill student creativity, right? And that's like a major point that he's making. I'm going to come back to my notes, and I've written so much here, got some good ideas here. I'm just gonna take my notes and kind of start bringing them in, and I might trim them up. I might pull parts that I like. I might remove parts I don't like, to kind of further expand on these main points. Shafiyeva claims that standardized tests fail to measure creativity or students' full knowledge, and that standardized tests are limiting and poor at assessing students because of this failure, right? The failure to measure creativity. He also notes that standardized tests are not inclusive, providing only one method of assessment. He further claims that these kinds of tests are a one-size-fits-all approach to teaching and determining, or teaching and, I don't know, I'm second guessing myself. The first words we use are always the best words. Determining student learning. This is coming from a slightly different, when teachers focus on prepping students for tests, the idea of uniqueness is lost. And I quoted that actually, and that is coming from page 86. And I'm to cite him specifically in this article, I'm just going to use his last name and the page number. When we're citing in text, is as we're writing, anytime we quote we're going to let our audience know that this direct quote, right after it, we're going to put in parentheses the author's last name and the page number where it came from, just letting the audience know this is coming from someone specific. Notice I did the same thing with the LinkedIn because that was a direct quote. I said where it came from. So it's really, really important. I'm going to put in here LinkedIn to make it super, super clear, because I want people to know exactly where that information is coming from, especially when it's word for word verbatim. That means the exact same words. It's got to be linked to the authors. So I have a sense of the main topic here. I want to talk about, now one of the main reasons I want to talk about him is because, yeah, so I'm on point. I'm just going back to my first sentence, like what was it that I wanted to discuss when I was talking about him and how important it is to reconsider how they teach to the test. And I think I've got that here. I can talk about some supporting evidence. Let me see if I have any of that written down in my notes. And I'm just taking my notes and bringing it over. Okay, taking a one-size-fits-all approach. Ignore students' individual needs. I like this. I think I'm going to bring this part of my notes in and make it part of the summary because it's kind of expanding this idea of uniqueness is lost and it's non-inclusive. I'm just going to paste it in and see how I can word it. Taking a one-size-fits-all approach, which is what standardized tests do. I guess I don't like that parenthesis there. According to, and notice I'm constantly naming the author. I want my audience to know where these ideas are coming from. So I'm still giving credit to the author, even though these ideas are coming from the entire essay or the entire reading. I'm accrediting all this information to him. That's why I name him pretty consistently throughout. According to Shafiyeva, standardized tests take a one-size-fits-all. I'm just kind of rewriting my notes so it fits into my sentence a little bit better. So teaching students. This ignores students' individual needs. Students have varied learning needs and they need to be stimulated in multiple teaching approaches. When teachers focus only on teaching to the test, they deny students varied learning needs, and that leads many students being left out of the learning experience, and left behind. Not because they are incapable, because students are left behind, not because, I'm just repeating, kind of getting, that was unclear as to what I was talking about there, so I just went ahead and added that idea in there that I was talking about, not because they're incapable, but because the system, the education system, I'll get more specific with that, failed to address, and the teachers and the test-focused teachers fail to address students' learning needs. I think that's pretty good. I think that gives a really good summary as to the problem with the test that he was talking about. Let me see if there's anything else I want to include here. Oh, well, his final conclusions, right? He said that education needs to change. Teachers and schools need to pull away from teaching. Yeah, I'll just include that as my final part to the summary. And so all of my summary really came from my notes, and the notes that I specifically used, I used, what were the key ideas to begin talking about the main ideas. I used the insights as well to kind of talk a little bit more about those key ideas. And I'm using the conclusions to wrap up, like what were the conclusions the source gave. I'm using that part to wrap up my summary. Now you can mix and match depending on what you find useful for yours, but all of your summary can come from the notes that you've already taken and build upon it, puzzle piece it together to make the summary that you're trying to explain. I'm happy with mine at this point. Education needs to change. I'm going to come in here. Shafiyeva argues that education needs to change. Teachers and schools need to pull away from teaching to the test and begin considering students learning true learning needs. I like that. I like that a lot. So that's my summary. And so already I've got about maybe half a page, a little over half a page. And all I've done is I've transitioned in very purposefully. I'm letting my audience know exactly why I am using this source as my way to transition in. I introduce the article that I'm reading as well as the author, and then I discuss immediately thereafter what makes this author credible. And then I go in to discuss the summary of the article. You know, what was the author trying to tell us in this reading based on the notes that I took from my Canva notes. I just used what were the key source ideas, what were the insights gained from the research, and what were the conclusions to build my particular summary. All right, guys. So I've just got one more thing to do to finish up discussing this particular source, at least right now, and that is to talk about how this source's information helps answer or connects to my question. And I'm going to do that in the next ride along. So I'll see you over there in a bit.